Halt, citizen! I am Inquisitor Boyce, and I am searching through this hive for the remembrancer by the name of Colm R. McGuinness to discuss his recent collection of hymns that have been known to promote Xenos and the ruinous powers. Allow me to read you my report on the matter, and if you have any information to his whereabouts, report it to me immediately or face the Emperor's judgment. That is right. Today we are looking at Space Shanties, the new album by Irish folk singer Colm R. McGuinness, who I did in one of my first Fresh Shave videos with his D&D inspired album, and now he's got a Warhammer 40k inspired one, hence the get up. For those who don't know and haven't seen the background of my shots, I'm a big old Warhammer nerd. This bookcase here, all Warhammer books. Got my Titan, got all the Warhammer, alright? I'm a big Warhammer guy. I got sprue coming out of my fucking goo. So, obviously, very interested that this artist that I liked was putting out a Warhammer album. One that I believe he crowdfunded. I didn't donate to it, for reasons I'll get into. But, still really cool to see Warhammer getting a lot of love, I guess. We'll get into it. Music in the 40k universe has always been a bit of an interesting point to me. I'm a big old war nerd, and it's not really addressed often. There's obviously like the liturgical music of the Church of the Imperium, which is of course riffing on that kind of high church hymns of Catholicism and Orthodox Christianity. But beyond that is rarely addressed. You've got in the novel Fulgrim, they've got the Remembrances, but even then that's orchestral, it's big band. It never really feels like they're addressing, what does the average person listen to in the Warhammer universe? And the one thing I've loved about Colm's work in the past of his fantasy material is that it fits so well in the trope of fantasy music that it is very easy to imagine in universe. And that's where I start having problems with this album, is that I can't imagine this in universe. Whatever music is in the Warhammer 40k universe, I don't think it's this. This doesn't fit. I was really hoping to be proven wrong as well, but I really didn't enjoy the initial singles that were coming out for this, and now that I have the whole album, I'm doubling down on that opinion, and that's why I mentioned that I didn't fund the Kickstarter or whatever crowdfund they were using, because when I heard the singles, I'm like, nah, this isn't doing it for me. This doesn't feel like Warhammer to me. Which is why it is a damn shame that the album opens up on possibly one of the only songs that does. One for the Martyrs genuinely feels like it could be something that would be sung in the trenches by the Imperial Guard. It is that real, gritty soldier track. Fits the archetype of the grunt and, the acoustic instrument maybe being one of the few joys that they're able to bring with them. And lyrically, it feels like something that might be contained to things a guard would know. And that's kind of the issue with writing music like that, is that in the universe of Warhammer, the typical person does not know the full story. And especially a lowly soldier, they've actually got an extremely narrow view force-fed to them by the ruling government of what the universe is like, what their world is like. Most of them don't even know that, the big villains, like the Chaos Demons, that they won't even be told they exist. They'll be told they're myth and they've got nothing to fear. They've just got to shoot ugly orcs. So they've got super limited scope. So when the music gets beyond that scope and it's, soldiers thinking about all the greater battles, it's like, oh man, I'm already pulled out because as a Warhammer nerd, I know that he shouldn't know that. In universe, soldiers who find out too much literally get executed for it. So that's where I start disconnecting, and I think the first song is the only one that plays within those confines. I'm like, oh yeah, this is something that could work, and then out of everything else, I'm like, nah, the illusion is broken. And that happens as soon as we hit to the second song, To the Eye We Shall Return, because again, it's a song about the ruinous powers of chaos, the evil demons of the universe, and it's just so hard for me to imagine that anyone who's pledged themselves to chaos could write a jaunty folk song about it, knowing that it is one of the most horrific things imaginable. It's a very predatory thing that will come after you at your weakest moment and offer you power and glory and whatnot, and then immediately just screw you over and turn you into a jabbering fool. And now that we're at this point, that I'm no longer invested in the universe of it, I just have to start judging it based on the actual songmanship as a like objective view, as its merits, instead of in-universe art, and it just does not work out. Besides Colm's always beautiful voice, it's just lacking anything interesting. There's so few changes that 90% of the songs, maybe that's a bit harsh, 60% of the songs, which is still a fuckload, are so interchangeable that, especially towards the end of the album, I'm beginning to think the album's repeated. I'm like, haven't I heard this song at the start of the album? And I go back to the start of the album, I'm like, no, it's a different song. It's just almost the exact same and has like an 80% overlap in theming, so may as well be the same song. I think the biggest punch on that is, if you remember, or if you saw my review of his previous album, I said that he does, the really jaunty folk songs that are really upbeat and pleasant and bring the world, and then he does that kind of gritty stomp clap style, and that's his weaker side. This is much, much heavier on that stomp clap style. It's got really basic foundational guitars. Yeah, the cheesy lyrics, and cheesy in a bad way, not in a good way. It's leveraging references way too heavily. And it's cool the first time to be like, oh, I got that one. But the next time it's like, yep, cool, I understood that. And nothing else is good about this song except me understanding that. As a super talented musician, I don't think he falls into it permanently. There are occasional good songs in there. The song Change is a great example of songs that stand up outside of being believable in universe. It's got this dark but upbeat guitar, a lot of like minor chords. It kind of adds that like almost gypsy folk element to it. It gets a bit swingy as it picks up, and then it hits the breakdown where it slows down to that menacing creep of like a vaudevillian villain tiptoeing around you. And I love it. And then it sadly ends really abruptly. I wish the song had a better ending. While I don't want their fan base anywhere near any fandom I in, it does remind me a lot of the songwriting in something like Has Been Hotel, which is the only redeemable part of that garbage show. But it's fun. And then it goes kind of back into what I'm going to call the lame songs. They're really boring. They're lame. For example, Blood for the Blood God. It sounds like a Disney villain. It's meant to be about Korn, the god of violence incarnate. And it sounds like it's being sung by Scar from The Lion King. And the moment I had that thought, it just unlocked the whole thing for me. I cracked it open why I don't love this when I really should. This whole thing feels like a soundtrack to a kid's movie about Warhammer. The songs all have a lot of big world building exposition and scene setting paired with simple instrumentals that are grand but not particularly complex and really easily understandable lyrics. It's the same archetype you'd use to world build via song in an animated movie, and it runs throughout the entire album. So when I'm sitting there, I'm listening to it, I'm not thinking that I'm in the grim, dark Warhammer 40,000 universe. I'm thinking about The Lion King. I'm thinking about Prince of Egypt. Movies like that. And that's why it's so jarring to me. And then on top of that, there's just so little variety between the songs, especially compared to his recent D&D material, that the 45-minute runtime feels like a 2-hour runtime. I find it so hard to get maybe like past the two-third parts when you hit like repent or more. It is so tempting to just turn it off because that's where it hits that point where everything feels like you heard it earlier in the album already. I will say it does end on something different. The Undying, it got this kind of industrial metal sound to it. Really reminiscent of the boss music in one of the boss fights in the Rogue Trader video game. I won't say which one because it's a spoiler, but if you listen to it and you've beaten that game, you'll probably know. And if you haven't played that game and you're watching this, it's probably up your alley. Go play Rogue Trader, it's great. All in all, I couldn't recommend this album as anything other than background music for a game day or a hobby day, or, to play in your store if you run a game store. Maybe if you're playing Darktide or a game like that, where it's, more about the gameplay and less about the universe. But even then, in all those examples, it would just be a song you put in a larger playlist. It wouldn't be music you go like, let's go listen to Space Shanties. because I don't think there's anything that drawing in there to make you want to go listen to it. But it did make me think, because I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the songs, Colm's not a bad musician, as I've already said. I'm like, where would this fit? It doesn't fit in the Warhammer universe. Get it away from there. But I'm not opposed to this whole, folk music in a sci-fi setting. I just think it needs to be somewhere else. And I'm like, who has that real soldier boy gruff country jukebox in the barracks style soldier? And then it clicked. StarCraft. I think an album like this, based on the StarCraft universe, would work great, because they basically already did it for the soundtrack for StarCraft 2, which I've got here on vinyl, Revolution Overdrive, which is so, country. It's literally got a cover of Sweet Home Alabama on there. It's got Freebird on there. I hope they do that, and if they do that, Colm, please, 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 please cover Zerg's Shotgun and You, because I think that would be really funny. And I think why I think it would work in StarCraft and why I don't think it works in Warhammer is just the archetype of the universe. I find that, in Warhammer 40,000, especially the Imperial Guard, it's a lot more World War One, World War Two coded, whereas StarCraft is more Vietnam War coded. So yeah, a StarCraft sci-fi folk album, I think that could work. With that darker stomp clap, give it a bit of southern twang, give it a bit of country. I think that would really suit that universe. But yeah, I don't think it suits Warhammer 40k, and I don't think this music stands up to the spotlight, that's for sure. So all in all, Colm R, McGuinness, you have been found wanting. May the Emperor have mercy on you. Peace out.